So believe it or not, there are actually sectors in recruitment you can run an agency in and they're pretty much recession proof. And I'm going to name you 3 of them that I think, and I've seen them stand the test of time, do pretty well. So I'll start off and I'll list them. The reason it's equally as important is because there's no detriment to running an agency even when the market's a bit flat, a bit slow, or the market's booming. These sectors do well in a boom or a bust economy. So it's duly noted if you are looking or you want to incorporate something like this into your existing business. So number 1 I'm going to start with is education. Education will never die. It will evolve, but it will never die. People always want to learn. They want training, they want schooling, they want to pass exams, they want to get qualified. Now, what stems into mind is most people think education, they think, oh, I don't really want to recruit teachers or supply teachers. That's not the case. Education is massive. It employs, 500,000 people in the UK. By proxy, it probably employs a lot more. It's a highly reliant sector. It's a backbone of the whole economy. When the schools strike, it affects every other business. So, what would you be looking at? You'd be looking at colleges are good. They're private sector in a sense. Universities are good as well. Look at private schools. Don't overlook them. Another sector is nurseries. Nurseries do very well, and it incorporates into another one that I'm going to discuss as well. So don't overlook education. I made a video previously about edutech as well. So have a look at education, go into it. Number 2 on this list is engineering. Now this has a question mark because some sectors won't be totally recession proof. However, I would say on the face of it, I don't think engineering is actually recession proof. But when I've looked back over the few, the pandemic, the recessions that I've gone through, the Brexit, etc., engineering has been one that survived. And it seems like it's incorporated a lot more and it's still doing very well to this day. I would say it's probably 2nd or 3rd best. So I wouldn't overlook engineering. It's high fees, good margins, there's a huge demand, and there's a lot of scope for you to go in and out of. So you might think, okay, what engineering? You could look at buildings regulations or building engineering. You could look at design engineering. You could look at a whole broad spectrum of just electrical engineering within a sector. So you can look at maritime, you can look at aerospace, automotive. Engineering just applies to everywhere. And it does somewhat include software engineers in a way, all that's tech. And I wouldn't recommend tech in a recession. That is usually, tech and finance are probably the worst during recessions. So, but the best in booms, funny enough. So the 3rd one on this list, and no other than I was driving down the road and I was telling my wife in Japan, they actually have a very low crime rate. And the police are usually sitting around doing nothing because they haven't got anything to do. They essentially glorified parking attendants. Which brings me to number 3. But I said, look at that ambulance over there. No matter what happens, people will always get sick and people will always die. Even if the healthcare becomes so good they can cure everything with a laser, people will still fall over, people will still get sick, etc. So healthcare, social care is in fact year on year for the last 8 years in the recruitment sector has grown exponentially. I am very glad I went into it. It's doing fantastic. Even to this day, when a recession hits, it's like nothing changed. Sure, some private companies may cut staff, but at the end of the day, the funding might get reduced, but it's always going to be there and people have to make it work. The companies will just go into debt, try and survive because they cannot afford to not provide that care for those specific people that are under their care. So, because it's criminal intent, criminal charges will be brought. So they have to provide it regardless of if it's, economically viable. Regardless, they're the 3 sectors I would say start off with, branch out with, and see how you get on. All the best. Happy 2024.